Hey guys, welcome to another video. I have the pleasure here again of talking with Ryan Dickerson. He is a 8-figure Amazon e-commerce seller. He's launched over 100 different products on Amazon. And in today's video, we're going to be talking all about taking ideas to reality. And specifically, if you haven't launched a product yet on Amazon, or if you just have your initial idea, you're unsure of how to take that idea to reality, we're going to be covering it in today's video. He's got a ton of experience, and I'm really excited to share this interview with you guys. I did want to mention, if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button below. I'm here helping you guys build 6- and 7-figure e-commerce businesses. I did want to take a moment here and say that we're in the L's Giant Metal Factory. This is located in Xiamen, China. We're going to be touring through the factory a little bit later on, giving you guys an insight look into production lines, metal manufacturing, different products that are going on. But without further ado, let's hop into today's interview. And Ryan, why don't we, thanks again for taking the time. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about bringing ideas to reality. Maybe we can kind of go through the step-by-step process that someone might go through. Let's say that they have an idea and they want to get it manufactured. How are they going to go about doing that? Especially if they're sitting over in the USA, this is their first product. They're a brand new seller or whatnot.
Yeah. So I think you hit the nail on the head right there. You have an idea and you know what you want. So you're the inventor. You know what you want. You need to have that picture in your brain of what you're trying to get to, and then the challenge is translating it to somebody that can actually make it. So you're going to need to start by prototyping it. It depends on how complicated it is. So we were using an example earlier of a backpack accessories that could be made out of plastic. It could be made out of metal, or it could be made out of fabric. So what I would do if it was metal is I would try to make a sample out of cardboard. Because you can actually, the way cardboard cuts and folds, it's very similar to the way a sheet of metal would be bent. For fabric, I would go to the fabric store, buy some fabric, cut it, try to make my own sample. If I really am having trouble stitching it together, I could hire a seamstress. Maybe your aunt knows how to use a sewing machine, but you could find somebody to put that together for you. If it's made out of plastic, you probably need to find somebody to help you do the CAD drawing if you can't do it yourself, and 3D print it. You never know, even though it's in your mind, you know what you want, nothing replaces actually prototyping and having a physical sample to actually see how it works and how it functions. Then you're going to need to try to find your manufacturer, and the better the sample is that you give them, or the better the drawings are that you give them, the better the sample is, and the less back and forth you're going to have to do with the manufacturer to get it to where you want it to be.
So step one there is kind of like, okay, I have this idea, I know what market I'm going to break into, I have this idea, so I'm going to go through this sampling, prototyping phase, and you do that on your own. So if you're sitting over in the USA, you kind of do that with yourself. Let's say now that you have a working prototype, or a finished sample, and you're going to go look for a factory. Can you take us through the kind of those steps a little bit?
Yeah. So when I first started, there wasn't a lot of e-commerce. So most of the factories didn't want to do small order quantities. I basically would just have to say, "Oh, I'm doing a test order. But I'm really big," and really I wasn't, in fact. But now a lot of factories understand e-commerce, and they're willing to take a chance on a smaller producer. That said, you don't want to go to the biggest factory in the world because they're just not going to have time for you. You want somebody that's the correct size for how big you are, where you're actually important and they're going to work with you. So now you have your sample. You don't want to show that to everybody, right? You're looking for, if it's a backpack accessory made out of fabric, you're probably going to backpack manufacturers. So if you show them that sample, they have massive customers already, and they're going to say, great idea. If I just show this to my Costco customer, they're going to buy 1 million versus your 500 units.
Right.
So we want to avoid sending these samples out to too many factories. So what I would do is I'd try to find a product that's similar, uses the same type of materials, similar in size, get them to quote that price. You're going to get the price back for that, and you're also going to see how responsive they are, how you like communicating with them, because you're probably going to be, hopefully, working with them for a while, and you want to have a good relationship. They're going to send you a sample back of the similar product that you asked for. If that product isn't perfect, you need to look somewhere else, because if a factory's not going to spend the time to make that first product perfect, then imagine how your like actual production is going to look.
So sorry to cut you off. Would you recommend going to Alibaba to find a manufacturer to?
Alibaba's a great tool, and we still use it here in China to find suppliers. I mean, we use it for all the small pieces. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into a product, even like the bolts, screws. We've done that, or we still do that, but there's some things you need to watch out for. There's a lot of people that are just marketing factories. So it's a single operation, and he's friends with the factory, and he'll put their products online. And then if you bite, then he'll get the product made at the factory, but take 3%, 5% just for marketing the factory's products on his Taobao store. So you don't really want to be in that situation. Also, there's an extra layer of communication. You're going to be sending samples to him, and he's going to send it to the factory. Right. And the farther away you are, the worse the communication is going to be. So the best advice I have is when you look at Taobao, or Alibaba, excuse me, what you want to look at is a factory is very specialized. Like a factory is going to be making cups, like all plastic, right? Or they're going to be making metal products, or they're going to be making wicker baskets. And that's the material that they're experts at working with. So if their Alibaba page has 5 different types of materials they're working with, it's all over the place, they're probably not making all of that stuff. They might be making one of them, but they're listing their buddy's factory stuff as well, just trying to get more customers. But if it's highly specialized, like if it's just tires, they're probably a tire manufacturer. If it's just glassware, everything's glass, and they're probably a glass manufacturer. And that's the best advice I can give for kind of selecting a factory on Alibaba.
Okay, so let's say that you've now selected a factory. What's the next step? Do you just go ahead and send them the prototype or the sample that you've kind of developed?
So hopefully you've picked 3 or 4 that you think are good factories. Then you're going to ask them, you're going to ask them to get a quote on something similar. You don't want to share all your designs yet.
Okay.
You select your factory based on how that process went, the price they gave you back, how it is working with them. If the prices, don't get too caught up on the price either. The most important thing is having a good product. The first product I ever did in China, I invested my life savings, $30,000, like I had saved for college, ordered a container of product. It was 500 units, and it all came back, and it didn't work. It was all trash. Like, wow. It was not cool, and I was out of business instantly. So if your first order, you can sell it, you're doing better than I was. So, you're always going to have challenges. And that's one of the reasons I'm here in China, is so that would never happen to me again, that I could watch and make sure that my product was made properly and I was getting what I was paying for. So I've never had that happen since, but that's why selecting the right manufacturer is important, that they have worked with similar products, they know the materials. One thing that you'll find is they'll always say, yes, oh, I can do this. Oh, you want this price? Yes, I can do it. But they're not going to lose money on it. So for you as a beginning seller, you really want to have something you can sell. And I'd say it's worth paying an extra 50 cents premium for a good product so that you can just get the machine up and running and you're selling product. And then take it from there. As your order quantities go up, then you can start talking about price and really pushing on that.
Can you touch a little bit more about, putting in your first order? What kind of MOQs are you looking at when you go to put in the first order? Are factories receptive to large minimum order quantities, small minimum order quantities? How's that?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot since we first started.
Okay.
Used to be 500 units. It was a challenge to get a factory to do 500 units. Now, not so much. You could definitely get that done. It also depends on what type of product it is. You have to remember the factory has to buy the materials for it. If you're asking for specific colors and what have you, it can add a whole different level of complexity to it, right? Because the factory buys things in large quantities and puts it together. So if you have a small fabric, I'm not sure what pouch that would attach to your backpack, unless the factory would probably have enough materials there to do 500 units, 400 units. When you're getting less than that, you need to find a factory that wants to take a chance on it, because they're really not making any money if they're making less than that number.
Right.
But like I said, they know e-commerce sellers now, and you tell them I'm selling on Amazon, and a lot of times they're willing to take a risk on that type of, to develop the relationship.
Ryan, can you talk a little bit about putting in your first order? Maybe you have some special tips, or that you could give some tips on putting in that first order.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a brand new seller, what do you need to watch out for?
You need to be as detailed as you possibly can be on that. It's called a PO, a purchase order, and you can get a standard template off of the internet. It's going to be PO. Maybe you don't put number one. Maybe you've told them that you're a brand new seller. But you want to list out as clearly as possible all the details about this product. The packaging, the instructions. You need to give it all to them up front at the time that you give the PO. If you say, okay, you've got the sample ready, and I'm going to send you the packaging later or the instructions later, you're going to give them an excuse to deliver late. Watch out for Chinese New Year. Don't put a PO in within 2 months of Chinese New Year starting, in hopefully a lot more time than that, because you're going to be a very small order. If big customers are placing orders around that time, which would be around Christmas time, you're going to be the first one to get bumped, and then you're going to be out even longer. Pretty standard is 30% deposit. They're going to want that because you're a new seller.
Does it matter if you come across as a smaller seller or a smaller company, or is it better to position yourself as kind of larger?
Yeah, I used to say that I was a larger company than I was, but I think that they could tell right away, just based on how much I knew about the production process, that I really didn't know what I was talking about. So I guess, I don't know what the right answer is to this one. If you're a new seller, you're a new seller, and hopefully you found a manufacturer that you trust and are good people. Just like anywhere, you're going to run into people that are no good and excellent. So hopefully you found that your working relationship with them is pretty solid, and they're willing to take a chance on this order with you. And I guess that also comes down to the size of the factory, whether they are interested in growing with you, or whether you're just kind of doesn't really matter, they just want to get the sale and move on.
Do you, going back to the purchase orders, do you have everything written in English and Chinese?
So we do that.
Okay.
So we have, everything's written out very clearly, what logos, where they are, as detailed as possible. We also have, you discuss the production lead time with the factory, and you say, will be delivered in 60 days, or a 10% penalty will be deducted from the final price. We put that on our POs, and to actually use that, it can be problematic. But and also you don't want to ruin the relationship right away. but because you spent a lot of time like getting them ready to produce this product. But it's good to have that on there just so they know that they can't just keep bumping you down the road and that you're going to push back if that happens. You need to put any kind of QC that you're going to do into the PO, when you expect to be updated. Like I said, as much detail as you possibly can put on there. You can pay in RMB or dollars, whatever you guys negotiate. Make sure that's on there. You need to have the payment terms, when you're going to pay. Are you going to pay when it leaves the factory? Are you going to pay 30 days after? When you're a new seller, you really don't have too much leverage to push this kind of thing. But hopefully you're dealing with a professional factory that wants to do proper business, and they're going to honor their contract. Getting into a situation where, like I said earlier, I lost an entire container, and you'll end up spending more on, like, it's a wash. Like, don't get into that situation. Make sure that you check the product before it leaves the factory in some way. You have some kind of QC to make sure, because if it arrives at your doorstep and there's a big problem with it, there's very little you can do. And just trying to do something about it, you're going to end up try suing somebody in a different country. Take that money and try to keep going, because the lawyers, they're not really going to create any value out of that.
You talked briefly about it before, but can we talk a little bit more about the negotiating process? Like, what do you typically try to negotiate for on that first order, especially if you're brand new, right? This is your first order, it's a new factory.
So you're not...
What are you trying to...
So you've gotten your quote back from them and you're happy with the price. You don't really want to keep pushing on price, because it's more important to get a good quality product, right? Even if you're paying a little bit more, as long as you have something good that you can sell, that's what's most important. Negotiating wise, you don't have any leverage, really. So what are you going to do? The only thing that you can do is you need to have a backup. So the weakness of a factory, a backup supplier. Okay. So the weakness of a factory really is, the only way you're ever going to be able to lower prices in the future is to say, well, if you can't give me a lower price, then I'm going to go to another supplier that's going to give me this price. And if you matter as a customer, they're going to say, no, I don't want, we want to keep you around. The other side of this is, and this has happened to me, where you get a hit product and the orders are going up and up and up. And so you think the factory is going to be, oh, wow, like really supporting you, and you're trying to push the price down. And they say, no, price is going up. Right. Because Christmas is coming, you got to get these things in stock. You don't have another factory trained to manufacture it, and they're just, and they've won. There's a,
the material cost is going up.
Yeah, and they hit you, and they're just trying to make money right now because they know that you don't really have any other option. So you don't want your backup supplier to really be trained in making your product yet, right? Because if you train them and you don't place an order, that's how your products end up on Alibaba. But you know who you want to work with, and maybe you could have them making a different product, like your next SKU, so at least you have several options with a working relationship that you could switch to if you needed to. You don't want to be stuck with only one choice, especially when you're a small seller and you're not too important to the factory. You need to have some kind of backup against that.
So Ryan, we're sitting here in L's giant metal factory, and I know this is one of your best suppliers. What makes them such a great supplier? How did you build this relationship with them? How did you select them initially?
Yeah, so they were recommended to me by an engineer. I just showed up one day and started working on a new design I had with them. I liked their engineering. I liked how they were working with me through the development process. They were allowing me to make multiple samples and weren't really pressured. Like, they were allowing me to do that. Spending time on the engineering, communication. and helping me to develop the product. Today, I mean, we're here today, and we've got 6 products in development here, and we have another factory in Dongguan where we have another 4 or 5 in development as well. Even when when they're not making the product, if it's a fabric product, usually I will package my products here at this factory because it's really important to have a protected supply chain. I've launched several other Amazon sellers' businesses because they were able to find my manufacturer, and my manufacturer didn't have any problem selling my designs to somebody else. And as soon as that happens, right, then you're just fighting, and the factory is going to make money because they're selling more products, but it's going to push your profit margins into the ground. So it's really important to find a manufacturer that you can really trust, that really does what they say they're going to do. If they're not going to meet their delivery deadlines, they're going to communicate it to you, tell you why, and allow you to work through it. A lot of manufacturers, suddenly your product isn't ready by the due date and they haven't told you, and it's some mundane issue that if they had just talked to you about it, you could have helped them work through and find a solution. And you really can't run a business if you don't know when your products are going to be delivered, and that if they're not to the quality that you agreed to. So with L's Giant, they really know metal products. They do excellent quality products, and they do what they say they're going to do. They don't sell them to other people. If it's your design, it's your design. And then they have excellent engineering. And that's really what my business is based on, is coming up with new products, building new products, and then shipping them out and not having to worry about other people coming in, seeing what we're doing. L's Giant, because it's such a large factory, already has a whole web of sub-suppliers. So we use the plastic factory right down the road from here, who's also the mayor of Xiamen, of this area of Xiamen, so that's helpful. Everything's nice and close. You don't want to be ordering something from very far away, because when you want to QC it, you want to be able to check everything right here. If there's a problem, you can just load it back in the truck and send it back to the factory right down the road. That's kind of the advantage of China generally, is the clustering of all, like the cardboard, the instruction, everything's right here. If you do it in the United States, it's pretty spread out. But again, because I trust L's Giant and we've been working together so long, I prefer to, if I'm doing a bundle or I'm having something that they didn't even produce manufactured, I will have it shipped here and packaged or bundled here, so I'm not showing another manufacturer what I'm putting together. So if I do all the research on a bundle, right, I have to find the supplier for X, Y, and Z products. I put a lot of work into that. And then I have factory X package it. I have to give that factory the contact information of all the suppliers I've researched and found, have them shipped to it, because then that factory has to pay the sub-suppliers. You can't pay for multiple parts of a factory. It has to come from one factory. So I basically built that factory's supply chain, and I don't want to do that. I want it to be my supply chain. And
how do you, let's say that you didn't have the infrastructure that you have set up for yourself today. Is it a real concern for someone just starting to protect their idea from a Chinese manufacturer? Or better yet, like, how do I protect my idea so that that factory doesn't just run off and sell it to a bunch of other people? What kind of steps can I take to protect myself?
So like I said, when you're looking for that initial factory, don't give them your detailed product. Pick something similar, get them to give you the price so that you know kind of what your price is going to be. You see what's like working with them. You don't want to send your unique design out to a bunch of factories. Once you decide on the factory, you can't be too guarded about it. Like, when you start selling it, everybody's going to see it anyway. Right. And also, when we're selecting the product, we're thinking about what's next, right? So don't get too caught up on somebody stealing your design, because you're going to have a lot of ideas. And if you don't have a lot of ideas, you're not really going to be able to grow your business. You have to be thinking that you're always going to be coming up with new products. So don't get too caught up on that one first product getting copied.
Just
look for that, get it produced, start selling it, and then you can start working on the next one. And hopefully the factory you're working with ends up being like a good, like reliable business partner. And if they're not, you've got your backup factory and you can always go to them. And you'll be lucky if you get a really good business partner in the beginning. I've had great ones, like I found this one, but it takes time and it takes trial and error, and everybody has different working styles. One way you can be pretty sure your product will end up on Alibaba is when you stop placing orders. That's pretty much because the factory will feel that they've spent time developing this with you, and then suddenly you stop placing orders, then they're going to kind of feel free to start putting it out there. So expect that. But usually, if you're placing orders and it's growing, they really don't want to hurt you. And usually they understand, they're reasonable, they understand that they don't want you fighting against another seller and crushing margins. Because if the margins go away, then you can't place orders. So usually they want to support you. And you even see today where there's a lot of factories that will actually, you see it a lot on crowdfunded campaigns where the factory will actually invest in the new product if they see how it's going. So factories are also jumping into the selling part, which brings me to another part. If I find a factory selling the product that I'm interested in already on Alibaba, on Amazon, no way. Because you try to develop that product some more, they're trying to sell it in the exact same market as you. That's a red line for me.
So maybe, would you ask a factory if they're already selling on Amazon?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, are you selling this on Amazon? Then you can also check the reviews and see the quality of the product. But you're going to be giving them your better design and competing directly with your supplier. I don't see how that's going to work. It's not going to end well.
Do you have any specific tips that you can give a seller that's just starting, hasn't launched a product, or maybe has just launched a product on the development process? Like, what would be your 3 main takeaways for, bringing an idea to reality? What are the most important things?
Yeah, so the most important is getting a product that you can sell. So the way I always look at the kind of first production run, it's never perfect, and you learn through the process, which is also why I say don't fight too much about cost. The most important is just to get a good product that you're excited to sell. If it's not up to quality and you're stuck with this product and you have to sell it, it's not going to be fun, right? You need to be able to get through that first 500 units or 400 units that you've gotten and learn from what the customers are saying, what they like, what they don't like, and fixing it. And it's a constant process. It never ends. You have to constantly be striving to make the best possible product you can. And you won't be able to get there if you're too afraid to show it to manufacturers, or you took all the quality out of it because you're fighting too much about cost, what have you. In the beginning, your only job is to get that product, start selling it, validate that niche that you're in so that you can start building it out. Because the first one you're just testing out, you just got to see if it works, and you're already thinking about how you're going to grow this line and all the different branches that you're going to have come off of it. So just make that first one work. And that requires, don't start an adversarial relationship with your manufacturer. Look at them as your partners, and hopefully you've chosen the correct one, and they're going to view you the same way. But don't be naive either. You have to, like I said, have your backup, be prepared, know what can happen. So if it does, you're ready and you're just not caught between a rock and a hard place.
All right, well, thank you, Ryan.
Always.
I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to L's Giant for letting us, use the office space here. And we're going to take a tour around the factory in our next video, guys. So make sure you check out the next video as we kind of walk through the factory. Ryan's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown on the different machines and kind of different production cycles that are currently going on. So it should be a good video. If you guys got value out of this video, definitely hit that like button, drop a comment below, and until next time, I'll see you on the next video, guys.